Somewhere right now, a parent is standing in a gift shop holding a $45 stuffed mouse, watching their child's face light up and reaching for their wallet without a second thought. That's not an accident. That moment was engineered decades ago on purpose by people who understood something most of us never think about. Welcome to Warren's Portfolio. Here's the number that should stop you cold. The Walt Disney Company generates over $90 billion in annual revenue, more than the GDP of entire countries, and a meaningful share of it traces back to a single decision made nearly a century ago. Not a movie, not a theme park, a decision about you. Before Disney ever sold you a ticket, they sold you a feeling. And feelings, it turns out, are the most profitable product ever invented. You didn't fall in love with a mouse by accident. You were the target of the most sophisticated emotional infrastructure ever built by a media company. And it was built specifically to follow you from childhood, through parenthood, into your own children's childhood. This isn't a story about cartoons. This is a story about one of the most quietly aggressive business models in modern capitalism, wearing the friendliest face imaginable. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how the mouse gets into your wallet every single time. Let's start with the foundational move that makes everything else possible. Disney doesn't sell products. Disney sells nostalgia and then sells it back to you for the rest of your life. Here's how the loop actually works. Step 1. Capture a child's emotional imagination between roughly ages 2 and 8, the exact developmental window when characters become genuinely real to a child's brain, not just entertainment. Child psychologists call this parasocial bonding. The brain forms a real emotional attachment to a fictional character, indistinguishable in some ways from attachment to an actual person. Disney didn't discover this by accident. Their entire content strategy, dating back to the 1930s, was deliberately built around repetition, music, and emotional peaks, specifically because those elements create the strongest, longest-lasting childhood memories. Step 2 of the loop. Once that bond is formed, Disney doesn't let it end with the movie. It becomes a toy, a backpack, a bedsheet, a theme park visit, a streaming subscription, a college dorm poster, ironically, 20 years later. This is called brand extension, and Disney didn't just participate in this strategy. They essentially perfected the modern version of it, applying it across more product categories than almost any company in history. Here's the open loop you need to hold on to. This strategy alone would make Disney enormously profitable, but it's not even the most aggressive part of the model. The most aggressive part is what happens to the price tag once the emotional bond exists. Let's talk about Disney theme park pricing specifically, because the numbers reveal the entire psychology. In the 1970s, a one-day ticket to Walt Disney World cost roughly $3.50. Adjusted purely for inflation, that ticket would cost somewhere around $25 to $30 today. Instead, a single-day ticket in 2025 and 2026 frequently runs $150 to over $200, depending on the date and demand-based pricing tier, multiple times higher than inflation alone would explain. That gap is not inflation. That gap is something economists call price inelasticity of emotional demand. When a product is tied closely enough to identity, memory, and emotional attachment, price increases stop functioning the way they do for ordinary goods. In plain terms, when something feels like, this is where I take my kids to give them what I had, price resistance collapses because the purchase isn't really being evaluated against alternatives. It's being evaluated against the cost of disappointing your own child. Disney's pricing teams understand this completely. Demand-based surge pricing on tickets, the introduction of paid line skipping systems, individual attraction fees stacked on top of admission, every one of these moves systematically tests exactly how much emotional leverage the brand can extract before resistance appears. And here's the part that closes the entire loop. That child standing in the gift shop today, the one whose parent is reaching for their wallet, in 15 to 20 years, they will very likely be the parent, standing in the same spot, reaching for their own wallet for their own child. The nostalgia isn't accidental generational transfer. It's the actual business model. Disney isn't just selling to you. Disney is pre-selling to whoever you eventually have children with. This is why Disney can survive recessions, streaming wars, and shifting entertainment trends that have crushed other media companies. They're not really competing for your entertainment dollar. They're competing for something far stickier, your willingness to relive your own childhood through someone else's eyes, at almost any price.
So here's the framework. Not to avoid Disney entirely, but to engage with this machine on your terms, not theirs. 5 steps. Step 1. Separate the content from the consumption. Watching a movie costs a streaming subscription. Buying every piece of merchandise tied to that movie is a completely separate financial decision, and it deserves to be made consciously, not automatically. Step 2. Budget theme park visits as a planned occasional experience, not a recurring lifestyle expense. Treat it the way you treat any major discretionary purchase. Researched, timed for lower demand pricing windows, and budgeted months in advance, not decided emotionally at the gate. Step 3. Recognize the merchandise checkpoint moments, the gift shop at the end of a ride, the character meet and greet photo upsell, the last day of vacation emotional purchase. These are deliberately engineered decision points, not impulse failures on your part. Step 4. Decide your nostalgia budget in advance. As a family, before you're standing in front of your own child's hopeful expression, a pre-decided number protects you from a decision your future self, in that exact emotional moment, was never going to make rationally. Step 5. Understand that the product being sold isn't really the toy or the ticket. It's permission to relive your own childhood. Once you can name that clearly, you get to decide how much that feeling is actually worth to you, instead of letting the price tag decide it for you. Here's the truth this entire empire is built on. Disney isn't tricking you. They built something genuinely magical, and then built one of history's most effective monetization systems directly on top of that magic. Understanding the mechanism doesn't make the magic fake. It just means you finally get to choose when you're buying a memory and when you're just buying a mouse. Warren didn't stop taking his kids to Disney. He just stopped letting Disney decide how much that trip was going to cost. And if you want to see exactly how this same nostalgia monetization playbook is now being used by an entire generation of streaming and gaming companies, the new mouse ears just digital, that breakdown is coming in the next video. Subscribe now, because once you see this pattern once, you'll start noticing it everywhere. This is not personal finance. This is financial warfare. And the moment you understand exactly what you're buying, that's the moment the magic stops being able to spend your money without your permission.